Uh, Thank you for joining us, whether you're via LinkedIn Live or watching the recording later via YouTube. Your time is valuable, so I'm going to get started straight away. Welcome to How to Write a Sales Plan for 2022. And for the first time, as I said, we're broadcasting via LinkedIn Live, so hopefully we will not get any messages from people saying they're struggling to connect. The technology gods will shine on us and everything will move smoothly. If you are a salesperson yourself, if you're a sales manager, a business owner, entrepreneur, and part of your responsibilities for in sales are creating a sales plan and delivering against a sales target, then this is the right place to be for the next uh, uh, 50 minutes to an hour. Please feel free to use the Q&A function within LinkedIn Live throughout the session, and if I don't get a chance to answer as I'm going through the deck, I promise I will answer any questions after the webinar finishes. And equally on LinkedIn, please use the on YouTube, please use the comments function. Uh, if you've been to any of our webinars before, you will know that this is what we would describe as a magic wand free zone. So we do not have any pixie dust that we can sprinkle on you or your organization that will make sales transform overnight. There is no substitute in B2B sales for hard work. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. In order to manage your expectations, we're simply going to walk through some super simple sales, an example of a super simple sales plan this afternoon, and there's a few elements, I beg your pardon, that we've left out primarily because of time. So let's get started. What's not included? Typically in a sales plan, you're going to have a review of the previous year, and that's just a review of everything from not just your sales targets, but performance, your structure, and how you measured against the objectives that you set yourself in the previous year. You also may well include a SWOT analysis based on your position within the market against the competition, etc. And you would certainly include some form of budget document in there to make sure that you've planned financially for the year ahead. Vision. So most people don't have this. Most people will not use this in their sales plan. However, it's something that we always like to include. For us, it is the guiding light, the pole star that we need to follow. And without a sales vision, the danger is that people are going to go off in all different directions. So if you've got a company vision, fantastic, that's great. It's not the same as a sales vision. Your sales vision is basically the North Star, as I said, that your team are going to follow, especially when you're not there. You need that North Star, and it's where you want to be, where your sales division, sales unit wants to be, where you want it to be in the next 3 years. Compelling vision creates hope, and without hope, your salespeople may well give up. The other thing that you may well include in this would be your sales values. Again, it's not quite the same as your company values. The vision, if you like, is the destination that your sales plan is actually leading to, and the sales plan is going to be the roadmap that you will follow to reach that vision. So values, where do the values fit in? The values are the rules that you've agreed to follow. Your sales team, as a team, we've agreed to follow on our journey to the vision. So it's super important. And why is it important? Well, if for any reason you're not there, and we cannot be there all the time, nor should you want to be all the time, and your salespeople are faced with making any form of decision, they simply should ask themselves two questions. Number one, will this take me closer or further away to my vision? And the second question would be, right, is this aligned with our sales values? And if the answer to both of those questions is yes, I promise they will not go far wrong. It might not be perfect. It might not be the way that you would do it. However, it won't be far wrong. And it's part of that. Maturing of your business, your sales team, that they have to be able to make their own decisions. You cannot micromanage people. You cannot nanny people forever. They've got to be able to make their own decisions. And the sales guys that are listening to this, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever, the sales guys that are listening to this will absolutely echo that. They don't want to be micromanaged. Nobody does. They don't want to be nannied. They're adults, and we've got to treat them as such. So start with the end in mind. Let's pretend last year's turnover was 1.2 million. I've made it round numbers because I'm hopeless at math. Let's pretend it was 1.2 million. I would suggest that you break that down into the monthly revenue figures, and that should cater for any seasonal differences that you have in your sales cycle. So I don't know. Let's pretend you've got some special offer around about Valentine's Day, and February is always a really amazing month for you. You need to take into account all those different trends and spread it out over the month. So our goal is 20% growth. That's an arbitrary figure. I'm not saying that you must choose 20%. If you are a SaaS company, I would suggest that in certain circumstances, 20% is just not going to be enough. If you're going for that hockey stick growth curve, your growth is going to be in line with your scale ratio. So, it could potentially be much more than 20%. Equally, if you are in some way recovering from the pandemic, the lockdown, 20% might seem too much of a stretch target. My gut tells me that if you've not got 20% down, my gut tells me that it's just not ambitious enough. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but for us, you've got to be ambitious, and you should be aiming for that 20% growth. So 20% growth onto 1.2 million is going to take you up to 1.44 million. So, bad news, 2021 had an RPI, retail price index, in the UK. I appreciate people are dialing in from all over the world. I'm potentially watching this on YouTube from all over the world. So the UK retail price index is how the UK measures inflation. And in 2021, the latest figures I can find is 2.5%. 2.5% of 1.2 million is 36,000, and you've got to add that into your target. So if you don't want to add in inflation, basically your profit margins are being eroded. Maybe you want to go home and tell your partner that you're going to be working just as hard in 2022, but you're going to take a 2.5% pay cut. I think I'd get whacked around the head if I tried that. You've got to be raising your prices. You've got to be profitable in order to be, in order to have a sustainable business. So, and again, I would adjust those values down into a monthly figure. Now, if you are as I said, your cost of sales are going up. Your cost of sales will be, a line item that's in your balance sheet. If you're a SaaS company, you might not have a cost of sales, but you'll have a cost of revenue as a line item. You can't avoid it. The inflation is inflation. It's not nice. You've got to take that into account, and you've got to add that into your pricing. And again, please break this down into the monthly figures. Why do we break it down into monthly figures? Because it becomes a much more achievable target. To say to somebody to hit 1.23 thousand, 123,000 in the month of April is going to be much easier than saying to somebody you're going to have, your target's 1.476 million for the year. Breaking it down makes it more digestible for everybody. And on that note, your sales plan, if it's your sales plan, I would suggest that ultimately is going to fail, right? The sales plan needs to be owned by everybody. The sales plan, if you're the business owner, if you're the sales manager, the fastest and easiest way to demotivate a sales team is to dump your sales plan on them, right? It's your sales plan, it's not theirs. Therefore, they will have no sense of ownership of it. They will have no sense, they will have no connection to it. To avoid that, you need to get the team as a whole, the salespeople. If they're executing on the sales plan, they've got to be involved in the formation of that sales plan. The sales guys that are on this webinar listening to this, they will absolutely resonate that, because we've all in sales had somebody, typically it's some anonymous corporate head office dump a sales plan on us that's got targets on us that, as far as we can perceive, have got no relation to reality, right? There's no context around it, ever. So, where possible, get the salespeople. I would also argue to have marketing people in there as well, right? We need to get everybody on board this sales plan. If you're a salesperson and you're writing a sales plan for the territory, you need to get the sales manager on board for obvious reasons, because you need the support of the business to help you execute on that sales plan. So the good news, if your business is typical, up to 80% of next year's revenue, 80% of 2022 revenue will come from 2021 customers. And on a 1.2 million turnover, that's going to give you 960,000 in terms of revenue for next year. Now, uh, if you are not getting 80% in terms of that follow through revenue to the next year, right, I would encourage you to do whatever you can to increase the recurring revenue that you're getting from your customers, whether that be introducing new contracts, new products or services, new strategies. Selling somebody one contract for 2 years is much easier than selling one person two single year contracts, right? And again, uh, uh, that might be difficult to get your head around, because you're asking people to commit for double the length of time. I totally get, I'm not for 1 minute saying this is easy, but we've got to get some way into your business where you're getting recurring revenue, so that every new month doesn't mean that you're starting from scratch. And every new year you're starting from scratch. So if you've not got recurring revenue from your existing products or services, work on that, and if needs be, change your products or services. Introduce new products or services that will get you recurring revenue. So you've got a baseline to work with, and obviously, uh, if you've got a high churn rate, churn, within your SaaS product, or churn within any other type of industry, your customer churn, right? You've got to get that sorted. There's no point chasing after new business if you've got a revolving door, right? Where the minute customers come in, they're going out the door. And even if they leave after 6 months, can we get them can we increase that 6 months to 9 months? What can we do to retain them for an extra, even if it was 10% of the time? What can we do to do that? Next up, talk to your customers. So those 20% of your clients will typically generate 80% of your revenue. So this revenue that I'm saying is going to come from your existing customers for next year. What I'm suggesting is that you go and talk to your customers, and this is super simple. Ask them these two questions. Number one, your business is important to me, Charlie. What do I need to do to ensure we don't lose your business next year? They've probably never had a sales guy ask them that question before, right? And they will tell you what you need to do, right? And imagine, don't just think of this as, don't take their first answer, probe. Imagine it's like an onion, and every question you ask peels off a layer of the onion. You've got to ask really probing questions, and if they just say, oh no, just do anything, what you're doing is great, you've got to come back at them and say, well, look, like, great's good, but we want to be better than great. And that's where the second question comes in. You've got to ask them, what could we do next year, right? What could our company do next year that you would perceive as going above and beyond? What is it that we could do next year for your organization that you guys would perceive as going above and beyond? And what I'm trying to do here, what we're trying to do, is we're trying to develop a base of what we call raving fans. If you've not read the book Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard, it's an old book, but lots of good stuff in there and lots of good ideas in there about client retention and how you can develop a base of raving fans, and they will give you referrals. And part of your strategy for next year is going to include new client acquisition. Referrals is part of that strategy. So uh, next up, here's an example of a contact plan. Make sure that you've got contact plans for this top 20% of your clients. You may have more than 20% that you've got a contact plan with, in terms of you will have segmented them, and some of them will be what I would describe as managed, some of them will be managed remotely, and some of them may be unmanaged, for want of a better word. So make sure you've got a contact plan for each of those segments within your business. And this is a real simple template that you can do. This is a template. It's a guide. It's a starting point. It's not a set of rules. I'm more than happy to share this. However, you've got to customize this and make it bespoke to your world and your customer base. I've just got some notes here. I just want to make sure that I do not miss anything. I think forgive me if I mentioned this earlier, but if you want a copy of any of the templates that we're using, just please drop a message in the Q&A section on LinkedIn Live or in the comments within the YouTube video session. So how to increase sales. There are only 4 ways to increase sales. Now, I'm sure some people are rolling their eyes because they've seen this a million miles before. You've seen it a million miles before because it's the truth, it's the reality. There's no point looking for this advanced, super magic wand, this pixie dust stuff. This is the harsh reality. There are only 4 ways to increase sales. Number 1, raise your prices. Number 2, increase the transaction frequency. Number 3, increase the average order size. Number 4, increase the customers that you sell to. I'm just going to talk through each of those individually just to give you some ideas on that. So number 1, raise your prices. First thing I would suggest that you look at is timing. You shouldn't be price gouging. You shouldn't be extorting people, and you've got to make sure that you're not increasing a price increase just before they're in some form of situation where they're compelled to buy and they feel trapped. Yes, you may get the business, however, you're potentially going to damage that relationship. So give people fair warning, give them plenty warning to any price increases that you're going to do. Please do not be shy or reticent about raising prices. I go back to my what I said at the start of this session. Retail price index has gone up, inflation is up, the cost of trading for your business to stay in business, the cost of you staying in business has gone up. And without increasing prices, you're going to erode your margins, and it's not sustainable. Next up, add value. What can you do to add value? Something that's low cost to you but perceived as high value to them, right? Think this through with your team, right? And see what you can do in exchange for that price increase. Next up, add service fees. Now, service fees is a catch-all for a number of things. It could be we want to add postage and package. We want to add travel time. We want to add whatever it is, right? But what are the costs that you're potentially eating as a business at the moment? You're eating them at the moment, but you want to be able to start passing some of that on. And it doesn't need to be all of it. It doesn't need to be all of it. It could be that you're only going to be charging half the mileage if you've got field salespeople, field engineers, and you're sending them out to do specific things. What can you do to mitigate some of those costs? And number 4, segment your customers. Can you change your customers charges legitimately based on volume? Can you raise your price based on some sort of service level that they're increased service level that they're actually using, which obviously leads me to the next one. And again, you've got to do this gently. Everything's got to be done gently because you've got to make sure that you're protecting your base, your good customer base. So talked about service levels. Could be you're going to change things on response times, demand, etc. Next up, take control. Take control. What do I mean by that? Often as salespeople, and I'm going to include myself here, we're just the wrong people to be having that conversation about money, right? We're just not good at that because we're trying to protect the relationship or whatever. So sometimes it's much better if you take control of the pricing and you just send a diktat out saying, "Team, the new price is now this. Right? We are not accepting any orders lower than this dollar figure amount." So take control from your salespeople, and a lot of salespeople are quite grateful for that scenario to happen. So, if that's appropriate for you, just take control and but work with them. Feel like they're part of the process. You've got to make them include these guys in your processing there. Last up, stage the increases. So let's pretend that for 2022 we need to get a 20% price increase. 20% is obviously, for a price increase, I would suggest maybe quite a lot. So rather than introduce a 20% price increase, what can you do to stage those increases throughout the year? So, if you go to your customers and say, look, we've got to increase our prices because our overheads have gone up, power's gone up, whatever else has gone up. We don't want to, but we're forced into doing it. However, what we're going to do is we're going to increase it in stages. So it'll be 10% for the first 6 months of 2022 and another 10% for the second 6 months. So trying and 20%, in reality, it's probably going to be more like 1.5% and 1.5%, a total of 3%. It's not going to be 20%, but still I think there's definitely a relationship factor, a benefit to the relationship, I should say, by introducing price increases in stages. Now, you absolutely must tell your customers that these price increases are coming, because if you don't tell them in advance, what they're going to be thinking is, oh my God, every 6 months I get a price increase. But if you tell them in advance and they're expecting it, it's usually easier for them to basically take that on board. So next up, increase the transaction frequency. How do we get them to buy more often? And there may be here's some ideas, in fact, that we can do about that. So it's the usual things, like what are the special offers that we can do? What are deals on future sales that we can do? So can we do a deal where we're getting them to buy future sales? Increase that revenue by that way. Loyalty rewards programs. You know, take the concept of a Costa or a Starbucks loyalty program and work out how you can then apply that to your manufacturing business or your SaaS business. Those loyalty and rewards programs work. You've just got to work out how to actually apply it to your business. There's nothing wrong with the strategy. It's not exclusive to business to consumer. It will work in B2B. You've just got to work out how to apply it in your world. And then obviously, cross-selling and upselling are the most common ways that you're going to get the increase the frequency of sales. Next up, my personal favourite, increase the average order size. How do we go about that? So bundling. How do I explain bundling? So Microsoft Teams, which I'm not sure. I believe it's the fastest selling Microsoft product ever. Microsoft Teams is actually, most people aren't aware of this, but Teams is actually just an interface that is built on SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, and Microsoft Exchange. So by bundling those three products and packaging them under the Teams banner, right? Microsoft, I've just had phenomenal success with Microsoft Teams. Klozers, just following the same thing. We're launching a new product in 2022 called Funnel Sprint. What is Funnel Sprint? Funnel Sprint is actually a combination of an inbound lead generation program and an outbound lead generation program. Those are two training courses that we've provided. We're currently providing individually, and we're putting the two together, right? And obviously, then it's going to increase the average order size from our own perspective. So, what new products and services can you introduce that are going to be, of a higher value? And again, you've in many cases, your products and services may well be becoming obsolete because the world is moving at such a fast pace. Do not be frightened to change. Do not be frightened to introduce new things. There are lots of great examples of companies who have introduced new products and services and went on to be phenomenally successful. The example I always use close to my heart is Suzuki. I'm sure everybody on the call has heard of Suzuki. What most people are not aware of, that Suzuki, the origins of Suzuki, where they were a silk loom producer. They actually manufactured the looms that the silk weavers in Japan would use, and round about the turn of the 20th century, the early 1900s, the leadership team in Suzuki were not convinced of the future of the silk loom industry, so they went. They realised that they had an asset in terms of the skill set of their employees. So they looked at what what other products that they thought were going to be successful, were going to start to become more popular, they could actually start to build. So they moved into engines, motorcycles, cars. So from a silk loom to a MotoGP world winning. Last year they were the world champions in motorcycles GP racing. So that's just a fantastic story of how people can and companies can reinvent themselves. If a corporation like Suzuki can do it, if companies like Intel can do it, that move from semiconductors into processors. If they can do it, then as small organisations like most of us on this webinar, if those big organisations can do it, we can do it. And again, the last one there is cross-selling and upselling is important. So last one, number 4, increase the number of customers you sell to, which is probably the most I don't know the most popular way to increase sales in the coming years. We want to get more companies to sell to. Totally get it, and that makes perfect sense. So how are we going to do this? Let's look at what worked previously. Let's follow the data. Look at the CRM. Go to your CRM and download the list of all your new businesses last year, all the new accounts that you won in the previous year, 2021, and look at the source of the lead. So did that lead come from your website? Did that lead come from cold call, a webinar? Where did those leads come from, right? And those strategies that are working, which of those strategies can we double down on for 2022? Now, some of them are not going to be, you're always going to get a different ROI on the different sales channels you use, but there's some evidence there, proof that you can go to your sales team. Look, we got 23 new accounts via our website last year. Right? What can we do to promote the website? What can we do to increase the visibility of the website? We got 43 people from webinars last year. Sales guys, what can we do to actually get more people onto the webinars? What content can we plan for the next webinars so that they stay popular? So look at what's worked in 2021, and then replicate that, parts of that, maybe not all of it, because it's not all going to be effective necessarily, and look to do that in 2022. Next up, it's inbound plus outbound. Now, a lot of companies have got a tendency to focus on one or the other. Technology companies, for example, tend to focus on the inbound but not the outbound. SaaS companies tend to focus on the outbound but not the inbound. It's not you don't need to choose. What they should be is completely aligned, and your inbound and your outbound should be connected to each other. If you're not sure what inbound or outbound is, inbound would typically be well, as it sounds, what are the ways that leads come into our business? So those typically would tend to have been marketing driven, and what I mean by that is they would be leads from, say, your website, uh, anything inbound, anything that makes what we say is anything that makes the phone ring or Outlook ping. So it's something that's been done by marketing. Outbound is the sales, is typically been done by sales. So, in 2021, because of the lockdowns and everything, it's typically going to be things like, cold calls, social selling, those sorts of things. Uh, Online networking, those sorts of things. Now, uh, conversation for another day, and we will be running a webinar on this. But if you've got a sales and marketing department, I would strongly suggest you scrap it. Right, sales and marketing, that business model was from years ago. You will have be much more productive. You will move forward much quicker and faster, right? If you put sales and marketing together and call it growth, call it revenue, call it whatever you want, but put the two together, right? Don't have them two separate departments, because it's just nonsensical. You're going to have different KPIs, different objectives. Nothing is aligned. Your perfect prospect profile for a marketeer is different to the sales guy. It's different to the onboarding team. You've got to put the two together. We call it growth, call it revenue, but make sure that you put the two together. Lastly is focus. So there are literally a million and one things as salespeople, as marketeers, that we can do under the guise of selling, lead generation, marketing. There are 101 different activities. If you try and do a million and one, if you try and do everything, all you're going to do is you're going to spread yourself thin. You will spread yourself thin, and the results are just not going to be as powerful as they could be. As an example, for us, we use one channel for inbound. It's called Google. There's 140,000 searches per second. As long as we get that right, we know we're going to get leads. We're going to get inbound leads. Now, how difficult is it to, how big a mountain is Google to climb? It's huge. However, the more time we spend on Google, the better we get on Google. We've already got, I think, 120 odd pages on articles on page one for selected keywords. So we pretty much know what we're doing, and we've got that cookie cutter process now. So we know what we're doing, but we only know what we're doing because we've invested a lot of time and we've focused on Google. 140,000 searches per second. I believe it's something like 90. I think it's 98% of the search market. So Bing, much as I love Microsoft, Bing's just not. It's just not big enough. Yahoo's not big enough. It's just, get onto Google, get onto page one of Google. Outbound, we only use LinkedIn. 720 million exec level business decision makers. Why would I go anywhere else? Why would I go anywhere else until I've maximised, the benefits and the potential opportunity on LinkedIn? So yes, I'm not for 1 minute saying that you shouldn't be on Facebook, you shouldn't be on Instagram. Once you've maximised certain channels and you're really, really good and you're getting the maximum ROI, by all means look at those other channels. But if you're not, right, you've got to get that laser focused so you're absolutely getting the best you can out of those two channels. Next up is planning. There's different ways that we can do this planning. This was the slide that I showed you earlier. Our target is 1.46. Remember, we want to start with the end in mind. So there's our monthly target. So how do we turn this into some form of plan that we can then follow? So you've got a number of options here. Planning by account. So draw up a list of your top customers that remember we said 80% of revenue is going to come from next year's accounts. So draw up a list of your accounts, right, and mark out what they purchased in January 2020, whatever the previous year was, 2021. Sorry, I'm just conscious people might be watching this video on YouTube a few years later. Figure out what people were sold the previous year, and then you can then work out, well, what do I do? What are they going to sell this year? Now, the first option in example A on the screen there is where you're adding another account. So you add one more account, and that one account is going to deliver 115k in revenue, which will bump you up from the 500 to the 615. So the other way to do it is to add in the actual increase in revenue to each of the accounts. So you're selling, you sold 10 widgets to United Federation last January, and you're going to be selling 12 widgets to them this January. Now, the reality is that it's never going to work out as neat and as exact as that, where you can just give them an extra 20% of your sales target, because the sales guys are going to say, but United Federation, they're contracting, they're closing a couple of facilities, and that account, we're going to be lucky to keep that same level. I totally understand that. But equally, the sales guys might say, well, look, Wayne Enterprises, they're opening up some new locations. We may get 14 widgets into them in January next year. So, talk to your team and spread it out over those your different accounts. And it may well be that you've got a mixture of the both. So you've got a mixture of a new account that you're adding, and you've increased sales to existing accounts, which would be the optimum, and what we would suggest. Next, you could plan this via service, the service of the products that you're selling. So you sold 12 widgets last year, you're going to sell 10 widgets last year, you're going to sell 12 again. So you're managing it, you're segmenting it by the service. And again, you may well be doing this where you're a combination of adding new accounts, or I beg your pardon, a new service to your product stack, and you're increasing sales to your existing stack. Another option is planning by territory, where you split your territory up, and it could be by country, it could be by region, but you're spreading that out on a monthly basis via the different regions. Now, most of you guys are probably going to end up with a plan that is going to it's going to be a combination of planning by account, planning by service, and planning by territory, and you probably include in there planning by salesperson, planning by the individual reps. You're going to end up with a matrix. I've not put a matrix in here because it tends to overcomplicate things, and the more complicated it is, it's much more difficult to execute. But I absolutely accept that for many of you on this webinar, you're going to need more than one way to slice and dice your sales plan. If you can, if you can use all 4 different ways, then fantastic. If not, I keep going back to this. The more simplistic your plan is, the more likely it is to be executed, and the more likely you are to be successful. So, the sales plan is the what. What is our targets, right? And that's super important. But the how do we then reach those targets is equally important. And a couple of things that I would suggest you think about. Number one is we've got to make ourselves we've got to identify the activities. What are the activities that drive those revenues? So again, that could be, it will be a combination of inbound and outbound activities. Once you've identified what those inbound and outbound activities are, you've got to make yourself accountable. If you're not accountable, your sales plan is just a wish list. So you've got to make yourself accountable, and if you're a salesperson, can you imagine what your boss would say if you ring your boss up and said, here's my sales plan for 2022. It's really important that I hit these targets. These are the activities I've chosen, I've identified that will contribute to hitting these targets. Could you please make sure that I do this on a consistent basis? So every week I want you to check in with me and make sure that I did this amount of calls, I did this amount of customer visits, I did whatever those activities are. Your boss is going to think, my God, what a refreshing attitude. Your boss is going to absolutely love that, and they will say, yeah, I'm happy to help you. And they will do whatever they can to help you. And equally, if if you're the sales manager, if you're the business owners, you've got to hold yourself accountable to actually supporting the team and making sure that they reach their targets, making sure that they actually deliver on the activities. And sometimes, right, you're going to have some maybe uncomfortable conversations when people aren't doing those activities. But that's why you business owners get paid the big bucks, right? You've got to be prepared to have those uncomfortable conversations with the sales guys, because us sales guys, us sales guys are a bit like we're quite easily distracted. Shiny objects appearing, on the periphery can quite easily distract us and take us down another path. We've got to stick to that sales plan. We've got to be held accountable to what's delivering what we've agreed to do in the sales plan. And lastly, for everybody, business owners, entrepreneurs, salespeople, we've got to enjoy the process as much as the results, potentially even more than the results. What do I mean by that? In sales, you will always get more no's than yeses. So if our psyche, if our belief system is wired to success, and winning is only when we get an order, that's great on the 1 time out of 10 that you're going to get the order. The other 9 times out of 10 where you get rejected, when you get ghosted, when you get basically told where to go, right, you're going to get completely demoralized and you're going to give up. So enjoy the process, and as long as you've got the numbers, make sure that you're making a note of the numbers. Follow the numbers. You can just say, okay, so every 53 calls I make, I get somebody who agrees to a meeting. Right? Out of every meeting, every 3 meetings, I get an order. As long as you've got that data there, when you get to number 41 in your calls and whatnot, you can say, look, I just need to keep going. I just need to follow my process, and I will get there. So make sure that you're tracking the data, you're tracking those the process that you're following, and you just do not put your hang your emotional hook on winning all the time. So starting point. If you've not done this, we say this to everybody. You've got to look at your ideal client profile. You've got to, if it was 2 or 3 years since you've done this, it's changed. Lockdown's changed everything. Go in and refresh your ideal client profile. Your ideal client profile is the perfect customer, the perfect organization that you would sell to. If you're not sure who that should be, go back to your CRM, look at the top, I don't know, the top 5, 6, 7 customers in 2021, and then look at the commonality, within those customers, and use them as the basis to complete this ideal client profile. If you do not have an ideal client profile, you are trying to sell to everybody, and when you try and sell to everybody, you end up selling to nobody. You've got to be laser focused like the sniper, not like the shotgun, so to speak. So next up is the perfect prospect profile. Perfect prospect profile is different to the ideal client profile in that your ideal client profile is based on your target organization. That's the companies that you're targeting. And the perfect prospect profile are the people within that organization that are involved in buying your products and services. They are part of the customer decision-making unit. Your customer's decision-making unit, I should say. The latest data that I read last week, I believe there's a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 16 people involved in the purchasing process for an enterprise sale. So you should have a minimum of 3 perfect prospect profiles. and I know that's hard work, but it's absolutely well worth the while. Uh, a simple example from us is we would have a prospect profile for a CEO, we'd have a prospect profile for a VP of sales, and we'd have a prospect profile for a VP of HR. Those are the three people that are, from our experience, tend to be more involved in the purchasing of our products and services. So for us, we've got three, but we've got more than three because different client profiles. A SaaS profile can be slightly different to a manufacturing company, etc. So, and again, if anybody wants a copy of these templates, you're more than welcome to drop a note in the comments on YouTube or in the Q&A section on LinkedIn. So once we've got this and we know who we're targeting, what are the strategies for 2021? So the latest from Smart Insights. So this is super up to date. Account-based marketing, 46%. Video marketing, influencer marketing. Now, influencer marketing, a lot of people that immediately jump to Instagram and that world of business to consumer. That's obviously relevant. However, business to business has influencer marketing as well. So, simple example of that: we have a client who has got a business, and they do salary sacrifice for electric vehicles. If you're not familiar with what salary sacrifice is for electric vehicles, go to Love Electric. I think it's .com. Love Electric, all one word, because I could not explain it myself. But basically, there's a tax benefit to the way that you purchase a car, so that you would actually save some money. My point is that's a business to business organization. They're targeting other businesses. However, influencers in their world would be accountants, because accountants are paid to advise companies on how to save money. So, right, if they can develop a channel via influencers, accountants in their circumstance that would actually help them introduce them to these their customers, that's going to be a great move for them. Uh, AI, artificial intelligence, that's becoming more and more prevalent. Retargeting is for people who, for example, have been in your website, and what happens is that the next time they're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere on the internet, they may see an advert for that particular product or service. I believe that retargeting adverts have got a 7 times higher conversion rate than cold pay-per-click ads. So, again, that might be something that you should be doing as part of your inbound process. And personalization, absolutely, personalization is huge. And inbound marketing, personally one of our favourites. So, moving on, there's the different strategies. Content. Why is content important? Content is like, if our sales team were soldiers, content is the guns that we give the soldiers. Without any form of weapons, our salespeople are going to be less effective. These are the weapons that we need to give our salespeople. Research, the up-to-date research, obviously, white papers, e-books, webinars, case studies, B2B publications, etc. So we've got to arm our salespeople with the right tools. We've got to give them the right tools to help them get interest. And once they've got interest from prospects, we've got to give them the right tools to convert that interest to a paying customer. If you've not got this content, I'm not suggesting that you need to do all of it, but you need to be building a library of this content that your salespeople can use. So we've talked about the strategies, we've talked about the different content. Here's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. This is our own sales plan. We split everything into what we call the high value areas of sales, and that's finding, closing, growing, and development. So if you can just focus all your energy on finding more prospects, closing more prospects, and growing existing accounts, it's almost impossible not to sell more. Now in sales, there are so many different distractions. It's so easy to just spin your wheels and end up going nowhere. Focus on finding, closing, and growing and developing. What is development? Development is, we've got to keep growing ourselves. We've got to keep uh, we've got to be the thought leaders in our industry. People are not going to come to us if it's like we're reading a call center script, with the greatest respect to people in call centers. Right? In B2B, they want to talk to thought leaders. They want to talk to industry experts. They want insights, and we've got to spend time consistently, right, to actually make sure that we're on top of our game. And when people come to us, they're going, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, right, I wish this salesperson worked for me. Wow, this salesperson really knows the industry. Giving back is obviously, we're a great believer, and you've got to give back to society, your community. Emerson's law of compensation: if you want more, give more, and obviously personal development. Uh, the more that you can grow as a human being, it's inextricably linked with sales. So, finding, closing, growing. There's the examples that we do, and this is real. This isn't made up for a webinar. These are the real things that we do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Content development, part of our inbound program, webinars, sales campaigns. Now, obviously, each of those, if you drill down, there's going to be metrics. So, for content, our metric is P1, P3. So what that means is, P3, P1. We will not create any content that does not get onto page one of Google and position within the top 3 positions. If we don't believe it's not going to get there, we're not going to try and do that. And why do we want that? Because there's 140,000 searches per second, and as long as we can get our face, if you like, in front of some of those searchers, we know we're going to get enough traffic to the website, and some of that traffic is going to convert. CRO there, that's the conversion rate optimization. 77 marketing qualified leads, and that was for the month of, I think that was October. We've not ran the November figures yet. That was and 3.1%. That's 77 out of all the traffic is the conversion ratio at 3.1. So once you've got those activities identified, put some data, add some meat to the bone, so to speak, so that you can actually measure it, and then it's about going out and implementing that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Those are the activities that you're going to have to do consistently. I don't believe it's in the on the website yet or on LinkedIn yet, but we're going to be running a session on in January, another webinar called "How to Manage Your Sales Activity," which is directly aligned to this. It's one of our most popular blog posts, and we'd love you to come along to that. But that will give you more detail on actually how to then implement and execute this. That's it. I'm going to be respectful of your time and finish a couple of minutes early. One of the best tips I was ever told in sales: never have a customer meeting run over, and if it finishes early, nobody will ever complain. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes back to your lunchtime. Thank you so much. Again, if you're watching via LinkedIn, please drop your details in the Q&A section if you would like a copy of the templates. If you're watching this subsequently on YouTube, please drop a note in the comments. And on YouTube, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. That would be brilliant. Thank you so much. I do know that there are certain people who seem to come to every single webinar. I do see the names. I'm super grateful. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great sales day.